Yeah. So, a pleasant afternoon to our colleagues in this part of East Asia and maybe afternoon in Australia and still morning from Asia. Welcome again to the Asia Pacific I and Management Society webinar. Today is the third of the series that we are organizing for the year 2021 amid the pandemic. And we are very honored to invite the Vice President of our society, APIEMS, and all the convener of the Industrial Engineering and Program of Ministry of Science and Technology in the area of industrial engineering to give a opening remarks. Let me introduce first our speaker to deliver this opening remark on behalf of the host. Professor Tan's research interests include engineering statistics and quality engineering, applied mathematical program, applied research and evolutionary computation, manufacturing systems engineering, and big data analytics and intelligent computing. He has been with the National Taipei University of Law, serving in several administrative and lead positions. He has also received several awards of the YS Science and Technology Memorialization, and he also serves as the editor-in-chief of the Engineering Optimization, published by Taylor and Francis since 2020. He's been with the CII also and other organizations as the editor-in-chief of various journals such as Journality and also the chief editor journal of Integration and Production Engineering, which will be more further promoted at the end of this webinar. So without further ado, may I invite Professor Chris Fan to give the opening on behalf of the host. You're on mute.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. Thank our keynote speaker, Professor Lim here. And I would like to express my thanks, gratefulness to Jackie, who made this webinar possible. Without his effort, the webinar be possible. So due to this very difficult moment under the threat of the COVID-19, I truly believe we still have concern about the safety, about the accuracy and in supply. I think it can be solved till the end of the year. So I quite optimistic. We still can have conference to be held in Taiwan. So the Asia University is going to be hosting the APIEMS 2022. So on behalf of the APIEMS and on behalf of the most in Taiwan, I would like to welcome all of the APIEM colleagues to come to Taiwan for the conference here. So I think the international collaboration made us be so productive. So this is the best way we can keep developing the interrelationship between the founding member and the countries. So now I would like to get it back to our host, our former fellow, Anthony. Back to you. Anthony, you are mute. You should turn on your...
Okay, thank you.
Huh?
Yeah, now this becomes a new norm that we have to remember. So, good afternoon again. Thank you, Professor Maurice Fan, for delivering that welcome remarks, including welcoming all of us to attend the Gulf Conference next year, 2022, in Taichung. And we really hopeful that travel will be back to normal. Together with part of members of APIEMS, we are very excited, and I think we miss each other very much. So it would be a good opportunity that we should meet in Taichung. So without further ado, may I introduce our speaker today. Our speaker today has been very active and physically present many of our APIEMS in the past years. He obtained his PhD in manufacturing systems from the University of Exeter, UK, and BA Honours in manufacturing engineering from the University of Liverpool. He is currently a distinguished professor of manufacturing and logistics engineering at Chongqing University in China, and professor of supply chain and operations management at Coventry University, UK. Most of his recent research work revolved around Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, blockchain, cloud manufacturing, and big data analysis. That also includes the transdisciplinary areas of circular economy, shared economy, sustainable supply chain, green and low carbon logistics, lean and agile manufacturing, meta-heuristics, cost and system optimization, and of course, RFID tools. Prior to his role, he was the head of the Center of Excellence for Chain Improvement and professor of supply chain and logistics at University of Salle in the UK. He has been working with companies in enhancing production and supply chain competitiveness, as well as in the implementation of the RFID technology for several years. Now, such as Toyota, Rolls-Royce in Derby, in UK, National Service NHS, Beaver, Alliance Boot, Tesco Express, and Caterpillar. He has also secured various UK and European Union research grants, now in the EU-funded project Citadel, On the Move, and the Advanced IoT. Professor Lim, our speaker, is a co-editor-in-chief of International Journal Logistics Research and Application by and Francis, and editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Supply Chain and Operations Resilience from InterScience. He's also chairman of the European Business Technology Society and member of the International Federation for Information Processing. He has been an active member in several editorial boards over nearly a dozen international journals of high impact, and it will take an hour to introduce him with his equally balanced contribution, not only in academia, administration, also industrial contribution. So without further ado, may I now Professor Ming Lim to start sharing all his important messages and research. Ming?
Okay, right. Thank you very much for inviting me to share with you about my research. Let me share my slides. Can you see my slides all right? Yeah?
Yes, okay.
All right.
Yeah,
all right, good. All right, okay. First of all, apologize that I've been into some. I'm a bit under the weather. I had my hay fever, so I had itchy eyes, running nose, and ate at the same time with some cold. So I might it, and but don't worry, I've tested and I'm negative for COVID, so I'm all right. So it happened that this week has been not too well. So let's quickly kick off with my presentation today. So I'd like to share with you about achieving a green logistics and supply chain in the context of Industrial 4.0. And so just briefly, my background. So my expertise in research, in applied research, can be categorized into three areas. One is more technology-driven, Friday in Industrial 4.0, IoT, big data, blockchain, and so on. And part or second aspect of my research is into more about circular economy, sharing economy, green sustainability, and so on. And the final part is on my manufacturing, industrial engineering background, to achieve agility, responsiveness, and so on. So that is about me in the last many years of my academic career that I pursue. And briefly about my profile at Scopus, I'm H-index at the moment is 20, and the Google Scholar at the moment is 36. And I have had received of funded projects, from the EU and from the APIEMS and so on. So altogether, so far, I have about 2.4 million pounds worth of various type of fundings, working with the companies as well, and as well as other in the institutes. And in terms of collaboration, I work a lot with companies. Now, as Professor Chiu introduced, I work with DHL and HS, which is care services, and Bombardier's and so on. So, of course, back then I was working on RFID, so I advised them and did a lot of pilot projects, implementation, rollout programs on RFID implementations. And these are some is that I work with, in the UK. So, towards the end of my presentation, I will introduce my journal. So at the moment, I will skip now about my journal, International Journal of Logistics Research and Applications. And this is the second journal that I started back in 2015 with a few colleagues. So it's still a new journal. So we are working hard on that to be, hopefully, one day to be more in a way that, looking at operations resilience. And let's kick off with my presentation. With this topic, I'd like to first of all briefly touch on Industrial 4.0, case that the audience may not be familiar with these ideas about Industrial 4.0. So these ideas was very firstly introduced in Germany in 2011. So if you look at the figure, the diagrams here, is that, of course, if you look at the history. So if you're first generation up to now is the fourth generation. So in the very beginning, it's all very on labor, all very manual, right? And then move on to the second generation is more about mass productions, because there'll be back then there'll be a lot of demands coming out, and therefore there are mass productions, and then they come into an assembly line and so on. Then computers becomes more popular. Then they've gone into robotics, automation, and so on. But in the fourth generation, so-called Industrial 4.0, so it must embrace the technologies, automations, data, and so on, and try to form a cyber as well as physical integrated systems. So where it came from, per se. So it's a quick introduction of these 4.0 ideas. But to me, it is an area or a concept that they integrate different technologies, especially now we keep talking about Internet of Things, how this thing over the cloud, should be performing, in the shop floor, for example, and to form a smart factory. So to me, is that it's a connected, smart things, if you like, with physical things like machines, parts, labor, and so on, as well as kind of a non-physical, like a cyberspace as well. So come together and to achieve a global goal. And to me, is that this Industrial 4.0 were able to provide a digital manufacturing environment, so with no human interventions, and it will be able to trigger events. For example, things has broke down or some change of rules or objective, and they will seek the trigger seek optimization, optimized solutions. And of course, if it's gone wrong, they will plan for ramifications in advance. So to me, translates into that, how we're going to achieve intelligence capability. But in order to achieve intelligence capability, first thing is that, how do you digitalize information? Especially for manufacturing, as you know, a lot of them, it could be analog because it's been set up years ago. So for this factory or manufacturing plant to be more intelligent in a way, but first thing is that how do you digitalize information that is needed? So that is the whole key to achieve intelligence capability. Of course, the argument about actually this Industrial 4.0 actually leads to the rapid growth of other things that, especially for in the research community, in artificial intelligence, big data, cloud-based services, and more recently about blockchain and on. All right. So for this, for today, share with you is that looking at the green or low carbon agendas into pictures, because in these ideas about Industrial 4.0 integrating different entities in there, how actually are we to leverage these efforts into looking into it? So that's my whole, if you like, the topic for today. So as I said, we have many technologies today, RFID said blah 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 blah, but a lot of them in isolation. So when they choose a technology to be implemented, they may not bigger picture of the whole environment. How can I achieve, called, Industrial 4.0? Is it just a buzzword? So of course there are a lot of efforts should go in from us as a scholar, as a researcher. How to leverage this, or how to explore value-added in integrating these different entities together to achieve the next generation of digital manufacturing or digital economy. In this is that I try to trigger some in this area, and I'll share with you some of the projects that I've been conducted in the UK, as well as in the last 3.5 years in China that I involved in with PhD students and companies. So that is where I've come about today. So to since for the audience, and this is a piece of work that we have done a few years ago about the effect of globalizations. So survey, and we have found out that the last one that I highlight is that the high visibility in the extended supply chain and its logistics operations is key to patients from the supply chain perspective. So how do you achieve an efficient supply chain? So the high visibility has been pinpointed by industries, saying that that is something that's key to them. So press on, holding on the high visibility capability. So I based on that, I look at what we could do with these technologies. So as I say, the modern technology, as you can see here, there are also different things that you can find in the market, or how people are using it at the moment. So my research question here is that, so how do you leverage all this modern technology and integrate this modern technology to enhance the supply chain and logistics visibility? First of all, with the visibility, and then how do you promote green in that horizon? So we have, from the research perspective, we have done a quick research of the publication in the last 10 years or so, looking at those keywords on sustainability and low carbon logistics. As you can see on the left, is it yellow? The yellow curve going up all the way through, knowing that a lot of researchers going into the directions. The remaining, as you can see, different colors, it's just a fraction of those, of those that all together in the green aspect. If you look at on my right, is that I amplify those technology. So you can see that the differences between RFID, Internet of Things, AI, data, and so on. So the second conclusion draw from that, when we do all these of technologies, they are quite isolated in terms of what they discuss and what they implement. So hardly see that there's kind of try to overlap this and try to find out the maximum potential of this. So that is our research, if you like, our research motivations. So how to integrate all these modern technologies to enhance visibility and as a means to promote greener logistics and supply chain. So to me, back in 2006, I involved a lot in RFID technology, so which is not new at all at the moment. But it's worth pointing out is that I know that a lot of the audience should have known, in terms of the RFID, what deliver in comparison to barcode on. But I'd like just to point out two important characteristics of RFID so that I could link next case projects that I have. First of all, with RFID is that you're able to provide a unique identification of each tag items. So there's different barcoding. And the second thing quite important is that the data that you store in the tag actually is accumulating information that you could process. So you collect data as you go along, for example, think about supply chain. So if you have items on one product, and in the supply chain, you can write on different informations onto the tag and pass it on. So these are quite powerful in terms of providing real-time information. So I'd like to share with you about some projects that we have had in this dimension. So the use of RFID technology plus AI ideas to increase supply chain visibility, as I mentioned earlier. The first project I'd like to share with you is about APIEMS, a UK projects is and physical sciences council projects. So within just a 2 years project. So what I did with this project is that I looked at how in the logistics, outbound logistics especially. So how do you actually use RFID, in tracking all the parts, if you like, or also in the outbound together with all that you have, all entities, key entities to have in more logistics to model them. And first of all, to model them by using agents technology, which is some people refer to agent-based modeling or multi-agent systems. So how could you leverage by using this technology to represent all entities in the logistics at the same time using RFID tag together with this technology to retrieve real-time information? Just imagine is that with the network that you have all the important entities in the logistics network that has been represented by agents, and the key flow of materials has been represented by RFID tag. So with that is that you provide a lot of this real-time information. So it translates into visibility. So you know what's going on. You have a real-time RFID data. You know what is going on, and anything that happens, you could easily or quickly simulate or to find out the best route. For example, if you talk about delivery, the best route ever. You can use that to track, for example, this. So there are a lot of opportunities with that by using, this real data from RFID systems, and plus the AI, which is a multi-agent system, to trigger different type of solutions. So that will become like a sensing capability to try to achieve greater, to predict what is going to happen. For example, a lot of things that could bring up. So there's a whole list of, as you can see at the bottom of that second part of this page, is that a lot of different benefits that you could target depending on what you like to achieve. So this is a 2 years project that we developed a system be able to achieve that. As I mentioned, there's a few companies that we work with the identified RFID from Thailand to provide us with the tag, and we have Cutting Edge, who is they are ready to eat meals packaging and APIEMS is a software company. So we have three partners together to find a goal. And this is a very interesting one that I really like about the whole ideas. So if you imagine that bottle of water, quite a lot of times, if you get, put it that way, if you get any bottle of water, you can see they are all barcodes. So if they're all the same batch, same SKU numbers, they're all the same barcodes. So you cannot identify which, you cannot uniquely identify any of these bottles, all right, because they have a barcode. Just imagine that if you have this tag, remember I mentioned about RFID tag being that it's unique in terms of identification. So don't talk about cost. Talk about if each of these bottle has been individually RFID tagged and they have unique identifications. I can tell the difference between bottle A and bottle B, although they have exactly the same badge and everything the same barcode, but they have a different RFID tag on it. So imagine if I go to a convenience store today, I bought type brand A of this mineral water, and if I go next week, I buy the same brand A bottle. So these two, as a matter of fact, they are from batch, but however, they was delivered separately to this particular convenience store. Right? Imagine that scenario. Right? So with this, just not mentioned RFID tag, you could write a lot of different information onto the tag in the supply chain. So because I bought these two same batch of this bottle of water, but delivered to the convenience stores at a different time, imagine that the RFID tag in these two bottles, they are unique. They can able to tell the difference between these bottles and information that is stored in this part. So imagine that, put a pause on that, when I trace into the supply chain, so I could enter different information onto the tag. All right. So for example, now which fleet would it went on, and how much CO2 emission emitted from the fleet, and in the store they use temperature control or whatever, and in lights or whatsoever. So sensing capability will be able to write information onto the particular tag. For example, contributed to carbon footprint. So from the carbon footprint perspective, right? So you calculate on, you have X amount of number of a contribution of carbon footprint on the particular bottle of water that gone through the supply chain. But if I go to another bottle of water that delivered the time to the store, you can find that the actual different information in terms of footprint. So with two bottles exactly the same from the same manufacturing plant, but produced at the same time, delivered at the same time, responsible for different percentage of the carbon footprint. So imagine that. So from that perspective, with barcode, you're very hard you could achieve, but with RFID you can give that, but put the cost away. But from the research perspective, is that you are able to achieve that. So it's amazing when I take these two different and pick it up. I said, actually, this one that I bought this week have less carbon footprint than the other one that I bought, the week after, because of all different of right. So it could be starting the traffic and it's been delayed in delivering, and therefore it consumes more carbon footprint. So this in mind, this information, the back-end information, will be able to give this data onto something else, for example, the AI or machine learning, to actually learn what is wrong, which one is better actually eventually, for the whole. So this is the capability of what I'm trying to explain, is that they are, when they integrate with different technology, will bring out additional benefits. So this is a project that I had on the door manufacturing companies. So with these companies, that they find problems is that the door that they manufacture, they use bulk labor on the door when they go through different workstations. So as you know, when they go to one station, they have to remove the barcode label in order to process the door and put the barcode label back on and pass it on to the network stations. As you can see, the sticker, over time become non and to be lost, and they can't trace that what is the next process this door or more information about this door, and create a lot of problems for the companies because they manufactured or they process over hundreds of doors. So as a result, they to me and say, oh, I learned about RFID. What can I do? With RFID that help my process to track, where the bottleneck to become, for what they do become more sustainable. So we research and we found RFID tag called NeoTag, as you can see in the middle of the slides. NeoTag. What they did is that they make a hole in the door, slide this thing in. So this NeoTag consists of information. It consists of the all number of this door, the customer belongs to, and the whole manufacturing processes, right? And it can install, for example, CNC machine codes and so on. So when they put this door on the workstation, machine will be able to sense it, read it, and know what the CNC machine codes, right? So without having the manual enter the code from the operators. So imagine all this become more automated with rich data, and this data could be linked to the cloud, and this of course could be linked to the customers. So this trace, it make a lot of difference, in different bits. For example, smoothen manufacturing processes in the shop floor, and provide more info to the customers and so on. It's kind of a thing. And of course, even better, they are customers. They are mainly hospitals or schools. They order hundreds at one time when they build new facilities. The more amazing thing is that they decided to, if they're gonna do thing, they will give a free RFID reader, right, to those hospitals or schools that order the doors from them. So imagine why do they do that? So this handheld RFID reader will give it to the school. So there are hundreds of doors. So if one of it, remember the RFID tag in the door permanently, even after they sold it, it's still in. So, for example, when they found a damage on the door, so they need the door to be replaced. They do not have to go through their filing cabinets trying to find out who produced this door. They just use the RFID that of course connect to the internet, to the router or whatsoever. When they scan it, this information will be flagged up immediately and pass it on to manufacturers and say that, oh, this door needs replacing. So the manufacturers will be able to immediately tell, for example, the hospital or school that, oh, this door will take 2 weeks to produce and it will cost this much money. So imagine for the company, amazing ideas, because this will retain their customer base. Right? For the customer themselves, save a lot of time. I just scan it and then send it over to the manufacturer. They're able to tell me everything that I need to know. So this creates opportunities for the business. So this is ideas that being creativity in terms of what we need to do. So the future for this is that how can we be more put more efforts into making greener operation. So just now I mentioned about digitalizing. So this is one company that a few years ago we come together to ask about potentially how to analog factory to become more industrial 4.0 environment. So as I said earlier, they are all analog. So then we talk about the only possible way for you to become industrial 4.0, if you like to claim that, is that you have to use information that you have. Discuss about, for example, they can use RFID or IoT environments, RFID on forklift, RFID parts, and so on. So once gone into shop floor or warehouse, they will track at points onwards until the part will leave their warehouse. So there are a lot of conversation back then going on about how to digitalize what they have at the moment. Because it built a new factory today. Of course, you can all sort of technology to become smart. But fortunately, a lot of companies that already have certain things that they have, and you can't invest all of it and put it to become digital, which is quite infeasible. So that's why digitalization is one one key point. And to share this is that there's certain things that we have to look at from our research perspective. Is that to look into something new. So if you go beyond the traditions, you're going to be in the marketplace, know what is going on. You have to have some innovative thinking about what to achieve, cross-disciplinary approach, different potential, trying to conquer something exciting. So if you look at the diagrams that I have from Chongqing University, if you look at this diagram, right? Sorry, this picture, and you can see that this colors, right, is representing mobile phones that is switched on, right? If you can see on the bottom left, very red bit, that a lot of people in the same area have their mobile phones on. The green one. So, about innovative thinking, I always like to use this picture to illustrate that. So, who you are, when you look at this picture, you have different interpretations, right? So, for example, if I be a businessman, I do sell, for example, burgers, right? So, my shops is open just around the red dots. And look at this now, it's 1:52. So if 1:52 p.m., but perhaps I have customers in my store, right? So that there are a lot around great opportunities trying to make more business by sending information, vouchers to our regular customers, right? Saying that now if you come to our shop now, buy in the next 30 minutes to buy a burger, you are entitled to 40% discount, for example. So with this, if I'm a businessman selling burger in the area, I have a different interpretations on this picture telling me that I have a business opportunity. So imagine that I'm someone that's doing delivery, last mile delivery. So I do delivery. So when I look at this, to avoid, right? So if I'm just an ordinary, residents, when I look at this, especially now with COVID, is that I try to avoid more people a crowded area, so I will not go to that area because it's too crowded, right? So different people look at this particular pictures with different interpretations. So what I'm trying to say here is you be innovative about what you could achieve as a result. So just about my team. So at the moment, I have this different people. I have one postdoc who recently finished her postdoc and joined the university in China, and other PhD students at Coventry University in China. So in the last few years, in producing research output in the area that I mentioned earlier about the technology-driven dimension. So for example, these particular students have published one paper with me on transportation research part B. So this idea is that it's trying to design an IoT logistics dispatching systems. And we try to look at how to avoid when people come to collect their parcel have to wait. Go to a center to collect parcel here. So with this idea is that imagine that this is so they track your apps to know that, for example, I say that I'm now to collect my parcel from A from a to the warehouse or to the dispatching area. So the system will be able to tell this particular guy, I want to track the apps, and knowing that how far this from where he is at the moment, dispatching area. So I can calculate the time, and internally we have a modeling or algorithm. Make sure the robots to pick the parts, the parcel, for the person to collect will be integrated. So knowing when to collect the parcel and how they're going to coordinate the apps from the customers and with the cloud and so on. So this is trying to avoid these customers to wait for long time at the dispatching area. So when it's about to arrive, we'll be almost ready. So it's kind of like zero waiting time. That is the ideal environment. And of course, internally, for the environment, they're trying to achieve a few things. For example, trying to optimize the robot dispatching routes, and they're trying to avoid collisions, between robots with the racks. Okay, so these are all different algorithms come together to achieve that. And another one to look into again in IoT environment, to design an architecture to look at, if I a company, I do my own fleet to products to deliver. At the same time, I would use a third party, a shared deliver the parcel if have sufficient own fleets to do that. So this is the ideal thinking using an IoT environment and sensing capability to dynamically to think about what best for the company to achieve in terms of cost, in terms of trying to achieve green and so on, whether to use their own fleet in combinations of using some other people's fleet, because it's a shared fleet, right? So it's trying to dynamically to find out the best way of doing that. So this is another exciting piece of work, and we have papers, computers and industrial engineering on trying to look at IoT for the past 20 years and so on. This paper is quite well cited at the moment, although it's just published last year, but available this year. And we're looking into cloud manufacturing systems, right? Get what the things that is manufacturing is important to achieve what we want in terms of technology-driven solutions. And we have a paper in this blockchains supply chain to look at the success factors, because blockchain is something that is still fairly new, and still a lot of argument and also for adoption eventually. So this paper looked at from a literature perspective and interview participants to look at success factors and so on. And then we have this cold chain that I will skip because of the time that we have at the moment. And then we papers into sharing economy, trying to use vehicles in an urban area that was look to cars and as the electricity price. And another one, look at the carbon tax and the quota. And this the policy, I think this is quite interesting that me, the students, be able to come up with an algorithm to eventually could be provided to policymaker to look at. So if a city trying to implement carbon tax and at the same time issuing carbon quota policy, how best they can come mixed and to provide the best solutions to companies in the urban city to achieve green or low logistics network. Now I'd like to ask some time on my journals. It's International Journals of Logistics Research and Application. It was established in 1998, and the impact factor for 2019 is 2.152, and we have 6 issues per year. Next year onwards, you will be having 12 issues every month. We have 1 issue because we have a huge backlog of papers that we accepted and waited to be published. We have 2 editors. We do not have associate editor per se, but I will explain about that. So we have 2 editors in chief, which is my and Professor Andy Lawrence from UC Liverpool. And just recently, about 3 months ago, we have appointed regional editors from Italy, from Dubai, a couple from China, and one. So we are trying to expand our footprint on different continents. So that is what we are trying to develop over the years. And our journal is that we are not, at the moment, we are still, it's an SSCI journal, so we focus less on the OR-oriented or OR-heavy papers. But however, after discussions with our fellow editors and publisher, we are planning to apply for as well. So eventually, it probably will be SCI and SSCI, so we will look at more OR papers. Okay, and in terms of the topics, we look at certain hot topics, if you like, logistics and chain. So as an editor, people will ask me, so tell me more about this journal. How do you decide? But I think as a editor for a number of years, of course, from the editor's perspective is that when we look at paper, we look at how well this paper is written in terms of the quality. It is written grammatically and argument and so on, the quality of the papers, and more importantly is the research gap. So we feel like if this paper is exciting, kind of addressing the current issues and potentially will attract of attention by researchers, then it will be potentially highly cited. So we are like that kind of paper more. And I'd like to share with you about some statistics about the journal. So then you can see here, sorry, the chart you can see here is from 2019. Look at the submissions. So as you can see that India, United States, those are that submitted a lot of papers to and the remaining other countries that submitted papers. And I think this is something that a lot of authors would like to know. And this could be a bit dated. I haven't got the figure yet, the statistics yet, but this one was obtained about September last year. Our acceptance rate probably for around 12%. So of course, it's quite for many journals. And the citing outcomes for 29 impact factor is that China, we have a lot of scholars in China citing us, and comes second England, and then USA, Italy, India, and so on. It doesn't run a bit too far from just now. The chart shows the sums of different countries. Scopus site scores, so we are doing pretty well. For the 2019, our site score is 5.2, has increased, as you can see, from 2015 onwards, it's increased. And in terms of falls into different categories, so far, we are falling in the Q1 in the Scopus sites, all right, and 2, but it's 20.6, quite close to 1. So there's where we are. And at the moment, we have five issues, and we have a special issue on Industry 3.0, and have a circular supply chain issue, and talking about post-pandemic on trying to unlock circular economy, and then supply chain receipt in re-globalizing and digital transformation. So at the moment, these 5 special issues. And of course, the audience, if you are interested in organizing any special issues, we could write it, and we could take it from there. And I think this is all that I would like to share with the audience today. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ming. At this moment, I would like to thank you for sharing this interesting work you have been doing with your PhD team. And of course, in the room there are almost everyone is an editor, and it's not just common that we are so excited about our daily editorial work. I can understand that. It would be interesting, aside from looking at the absolute number of Pareto charts of what countries contribute most in journal, how about say per capita chart, so that we know, because naturally we will say China may have always the big contribution, but per capita will that be number 1 also, or maybe the other countries will come to the first. I received several, yeah.
I think that is a very, very to talk about. I would reflect this to the publisher and try to ask them to be a figure. Because as you say, certain countries, in terms of population, they're not a lot. So that would be a different aspect of analysis. Thank you very much for that remark.
Yeah, from an environmental engineering point of view, we normally like to look at per capita contribution also all the time. I received a few questions from audience, and there's one cluster of questions very much focusing on competitiveness and also developing economies status. For example, a generic question is that how can the SMEs in general survive during this transition of green and in 4.0, given that they have a very limited access to information, access to knowledge, and access to resources? What is the critical elements for the changing process?
The critical elements. I think I've been working with industry for quite many years. I think it's to me, my friend, is that is the commitments of the company. When I say that commitment, it translates into quite a few things. Of course, talk about the performance of the company, whether able to achieve something like that. And of course, there's also some other pressure coming in for them to that. For example, certain regulations that require them to comply before they can bid for any project. So I think those are some the examples I see that driving this. But I think they, from the implementation perspective or from whether they can achieve that, I don't think there's any issues because we know that you can. But of course, to say is that the cost, so that you have the performance of the company, commitment of the company, the pressure externally. So this is something that they have to explore. In one of the projects that I have is actually a period we're about to finish in Coventry University. The topic that I give the student is being green is being competitive. So what do I try to argue here? Giving the recent, not about pandemic or whatsoever, for any companies that are trying to or trying to achieve something great in the market, you have to be more competitive. So green to me is opportunity for the company to be more competitive in market. So it can, to me, it's like, it's a trigger for it to be more competitive. Because, of course, when I speak to the company, is that I always try to be. So, for example, in the beginning 2006, when I begin to talk about RFID, I would not go and sell RFID, but I go trying to sell competitiveness in the company. So RFID of the tool, it doesn't mean that it's magic tool. No. Sometimes companies come to me and talk about, I heard about RFID, so can you help to resolve this and resolve that? I tell the company is that actually you do not need RFID to achieve that. You just change the features that you have at the moment to achieve that. So be frank with it. But however, at the part 2, I talk about if you have capital to implement RFID, for example, then there are more of these benefits that you could have. Then, of course, the third part is that trying to introduce different initiatives from the government. Of course, our government to promote our researchers to work with industries. So I will tell them is that this projects for SME called KTP only contribute 40% of the cost, and the government will contribute 60% of the total cost to implement what you need to implement your competitiveness in the market. So that I believe, critical.
Yeah, I totally agree. But in some developing countries, where unlike EU pandemic, we know that they already released a big amount of so-called pandemic Green New Deal or the green funds to subsidize and boost the economy. And in many developing economies, they don't. And the next question actually it's the same question, but in this case it says, in the global scale, how the development gaps on the nations or supply chain stakeholders will influence to the green and the industry 4.0. Thus, the poor or developing can have many advantages from the green and industry 4.0, since these countries have hard time to adapt in the changing situation due to the limited resources. And you can also couple this to a special issue that is promoting the industry 3.5, promoted Professor Chen, the president of the IIE.
I think this is a $million question. No, so I'm best to address that. But yeah, for a different challenge. To be honest, I feel like it's a question that I'm not sure if I can fully address that. What about Professor Fan?
Yeah, we have the convener here, so he will take over any questions. Yeah, many countries are, of course, evaluating the entire value chain, and nowadays it's not just a company to company, not a chain to chain, but it's already kind of it's more or less an accumulated or aggregate competitiveness. And yeah, certainly, many of your insights are really helpful to the greening and also the sustainable future. But of course, countries are still looking at the ROI. Some countries are suggested to pick the low-hanging fruits. But sometimes the ROI of the low-hanging fruits are actually staggering and bringing them to a less effective situation rather than taking a big loan and go into a higher competitiveness. But definitely, internal strength and weakness will determine what is the better solutions to both. So actually, going back to our old analysis is still a very good old tool to use.
Yeah, can I share my observations? Because pre-pandemic, this deglobalization is going to come into the picture. I feel like this pandemic really figure off people or company as we think about, we can't do too much on global things that would affect our own operations and of course how we function as a company. I think there's something that quite interesting. I begin to, because I have one special issue, deglobalization as well, that I think that is something that could be bear in mind, or something that could be something that is happening. And as you said, is that to pick the fruits from a lower tree branch. So what can we do now, given the pandemic? Because you can't wait for the pandemic, because this pandemic, it's just keep going on until we achieve herd immunity. Like we'll have to exit. So there is still some ways to go.
Yeah.
So I think you are very right in terms of, in order to survive, we can't wait. We can't wait. We have locally, regionally, we don't rely too on global partners or global supply chain.
Right. It's the beauty of the ID. We pick up all the physical region to work with. And of course, I wish you all the best in UK, and hopefully with the new extension of 30 days before the next lockdown become true, and the Delta variant will control in UK. And at this moment, may I now turn back the screen to the host in Asia University, and I'd like to invite Dr. Yen, who's the managing editor of the officials IE journal, to give a meeting or two to also promote their JIE journal. Dr. Yen, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for Ming Lim and Maurice accept our invitation and attend it's okay. We are okay. Attend our webinar. And thank you for your contribution. Thank you for responding my emails. Here, I just want to briefly talk about our journal. We received this journal since I think March this 2021 this year. Our journal we have a side score of 3.7 now, and now we are trying to increase the side score. One, we are design few strategies. The first one is we are trying to reduce the first response from the current 3 months to 1 days. We are talking with Taylor and Francis about this one. So we try to be very fast, very responsive, and engage as many submissions as we can so that we can increase. We have 8 issues per year, and currently our acceptance rate is about 32%, and we are working on that. Recently, since we received, we will let your journal paper submission is under review or not in 3 to 4 days maximum. We have at least 2-week editorial meeting to decide this journal will go under review and this journal will not. And we have also a lot of experienced people to advise us how to manage, how to do it, including Prof. Ming Lim. Whenever we have some problem, we just ask him, what should we do? He give us a lot of consultation. Yeah, thank you very much for that too. Our journal, we have 2 key terms. We are industrial engineering basically, and we focus on production engineering. And recently, we are working to make it as better as possible. And we are giving encouragements. We see at the beginning we receive a lot of submissions with very high similarity. Now the community is starting to understand the standard we have implemented. We demand 20% similarity, a maximum, including reference and everything. We demand that one. And now it's starting coming in line, and we hope this will be getting better and better. And our aim is to take this journal to be Scopus Index. Now it's ESCI to make it SC as soon as possible. So submit to our journal, give us feedback, support our journal, part on the revision process. We need a lot. We need a very key reviewers to improve journal, and very much looking forward the support of the community. Actually, the IE community is very strong in Taiwan, and our journal is very much centered. And please support us, help us, and let's make this journal stronger together. Thank you. So I have finished, Prof. Anthony. We can say later, everybody, we can go back now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have a group picture, and then we'll make it and call it a day.
All right. Thank you.
Let's take a picture.
Could you, all of you, please turn the camera so we can take a group picture? Jackie, could you come here or take my seat?
Yeah, could you just take a screenshot? Take a screenshot.
Yes.
Also remove the sharing so that our phone will be bigger in the scene. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Like that? How should I make it here?
Just press the print screen.
There you go. Can we?
Let me take one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
All right, great.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Lim. This is quite impressed talk.
Thank you.
I'm really impressed. Anthony.
Yeah, thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Ian. Really hope we can see
Have a
each
good
other
weekend.
soon.
Bye bye.
See each other.
See you in 2022.